If you're a sports fan like me, you could talk all day about how the team looks on paper. But we all know the real test to see what a team has is when they step onto the field for a game. Hey, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com. Today we're reviewing the popular ASUS ROG Swift OLED PG27AQDP. It's one of the first 27-inch OLEDs with a 1440p resolution and 480Hz refresh rate out there. It competes with other monitors that use the same specs, like the Sony InZone M10S and the LG GX7. So on paper, it should be the true champion for gaming, but once we put it to the test, is it really worth the hype? And more importantly, should you buy it? Let's start by seeing how it looks. There isn't much to it. What you see is what you get. You could easily adjust the stand, and there's a cutout to put your cables through. The housing for the inputs has some RGB lighting and a transparent plastic covering. It's something that makes you think of those electronics you had 20 years ago. What year is it, ASUS? Apparently 2024, but at least it comes with inputs you'd expect on a modern monitor. One DisplayPort 1.4 input, two HDMI 2.1 ports, a USB hub, and your classic headphone jack. It doesn't have a USB-C or KVM switch like some other high-end monitors, but are you really getting this monitor for the inputs? No, of course not. You're getting this monitor because of the 480Hz refresh rate. For sure you need a setup that can maintain such high frame rates with a 1440p resolution, and your graphics card needs to use DSC to compress signals to reach that max refresh rate. But the monitor also has a setting to turn off DSC if you prefer not using it at all with a lower refresh rate. And of course, it supports all common VRR formats to reduce screen tearing with pretty much any source. Plus, it has all the fantastic perks of an OLED for gaming. Motion looks sharp at any refresh rate. I mean, just look at it. So crispy that your air fryer would be jealous of it. Did you know that we also test air fryers? Even at low refresh rates, there isn't much smearing or ghosting, and any blur that you see is caused by persistence. Luckily, it does have a black frame insertion feature to reduce this blur. It actually works pretty well, but only with fixed 120Hz or 240Hz signals, and not at the same time as VRR. So it definitely helps, just not at all times. Moving on, gaming feels responsive with most refresh rates thanks to the low input lag. But it goes up a lot more with 60Hz signals, which is a problem if you need fast reactions for playing games at 60Hz, like on consoles. But at that point, playing games at 60Hz probably isn't what most people are using this monitor for. Keeping with the topic of consoles, it works well with both the PS5 and Xbox Series X or S. There aren't any issues, and it even downscales 4K signals up to 120Hz. This is useful for playing games in HDR on the Xbox, since that console only supports HDR with 4K signals. It isn't perfect for gaming though, and it has some downsides. First, it has noticeable VRR flicker when there's changing frame rates. It's pretty distracting in dark scenes or dark areas of bright scenes. It has an OLED anti-flicker setting that does reduce the flicker, but it doesn't eliminate it all. Plus it causes stutter, so it's not a perfect solution. But the biggest issue with this monitor is the number of bugs it has. Settings change for no reason, even without us doing anything, and other settings are locked out. Some settings don't even work at all. We know this is something other people have talked about in our discussions, so we aren't the only ones experiencing it. We did test the monitor with firmware MCM 103, but we'll retest it if ASUS comes out with another firmware to fix it. So stay tuned for the review on our website for that. With all that said, it's still fantastic for gaming, but is it really a top gaming monitor without incredible picture quality? Luckily, this monitor still offers that. To start, it has all the amazing things that OLEDs are known for, like the perfect contrast and no blooming. Simply put, it looks incredible if you're gaming in a dark room. Plus, it also gets bright enough in HDR to make small highlights pop against the rest of the image. It just can't keep this high brightness with larger highlights, which is typical of OLEDs. On the plus side, it tracks the PQ EOTF curve well for the most part, so it displays most content at the brightness that the creator intended. But bright scenes are just a bit too bright. Another thing is that it has some changes in brightness between different content, like if you're opening and closing windows. It isn't enough to be really distracting, but it has a uniform brightness setting that you could use to make brightness more consistent across different content. It does this by limiting the brightness though. On top of that, it's also a good choice if you want something for a bright room. It uses MLA Plus technology that lets it get brighter than most other OLEDs, so it fights glare well in most bright rooms. Just don't place it opposite a sunny window, you'll have a harder time seeing the image like that. But if you do plan on using it in a bright room, it does have fantastic reflection handling. It has a semi-gloss coating that's like a mix of pure matte and pure glossy screens. It spreads light out well, and reflections aren't distracting. While we're on the topic of picture quality, let's talk more about another hot topic, and that's the text clarity. This is because this monitor has a different and newer subpixel layout compared to other WOLED monitors. It actually has less fringing compared to these others, but it's still there, and text doesn't look as good as a 27-inch 1440p display with an LCD panel. So what does this mean? It means that text looks fine, that's about it. And the last thing we'll touch on is the colors. It has an accurate sRGB mode in SDR, but it isn't perfect. There are white balance and gamma issues, so you'll have to calibrate it if you want the most accurate colors. It also displays a wide range of colors in HDR. It covers most of the DCI-P3 color space that's used in most HDR content, and colors are accurate for lifelike images. But it has worse coverage of the wider Rec 2020 color space. And finally, it displays those dark colors well, but bright colors aren't as vivid as on a QD OLED. So is this monitor worth the hype? And should you get it? The hype is real, and it's definitely one of the best gaming monitors you can get. You really can't go wrong with a stunning picture quality, incredibly sharp motion, and high refresh rate. So yes, you should get it, but probably not right now. While the hardware is fantastic, the software is lacking. The bugs are really annoying, and even if you aren't the type to play around with settings, it'll do it for you. You may be better off waiting until ASUS fixes this with a firmware update before getting it. But if you're an early adopter, no need to worry, you still have a fantastic gaming display. We have yet to test other monitors that have the same specs, so it's hard to compare how it is against its competition. But against the rest of the market, there are some other options you may want to think about depending on your needs. One of those is the Gigabyte Aorus FO27Q3, which is also a 27-inch 1440p OLED. It has a lower 360Hz refresh rate, but the main advantage of getting it is that its QD OLED panel has better picture quality. Colors are more vivid, and it also displays a wider range of more accurate colors. Plus, it has some extra perks like a KVM switch. Because these two monitors tend to cost around the same, choosing to go with one over the other depends on if you want the higher refresh rate or the better picture quality. That's all for the ASUS ROG Swift OLED PG27AQDP. If you want more details on the monitor, check out our written review. The link is in the description below. Until next time, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Ciao. But at least it comes with inputs you'd expect on a modern monitor. Let me try that. But at least it comes with inputs. Okay, let me try that one more time.